Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the internal and external business environment. This is a relatively short video because all we want to do really is identify what we mean by internal and external environments, and then we'll have a short listing of the kinds of tools we can use to analyze the different environments. However, those will be covered in separate videos. So if we start just by looking at the internal environment, and just a note here, although this is business environments, we have to recognize that our unit of focus is the organization. This applies equally whether we're looking at a giant multinational enterprise, whether we're looking at a company, whether we're looking at an SME, small to medium sized enterprise, or indeed a charity or other non-profit or not-for-profit organization. So this is applicable to any organization really. So our internal environment consists really of everything within the organization, whether that's staff members and people, whether that's tangible and intangible assets, whether it's different types of resources, so buildings and other material resources, as well as the overall capabilities of the organization itself. All of these are internal to the organization, they're within the organization, so therefore they form the internal environment of the organization. Now that's relatively straightforward. However, when we move on to look at the external environment, we are going to split these into two: the micro external environment and the macro external environment. So the micro external environment consists of those things which are outside of the organization but frequently in contact with the organization itself. So we can think of things like customers, competitors, suppliers, and the general marketplace, which are frequently and sometimes constantly in contact with the organization. So the organization is constantly interacting with its customers, it's interacting with its competitors, it's interacting with its suppliers, it's operating firmly within its marketplace. So although these things are external to the organization, they are just outside of the organization. So therefore we group them together under this heading of micro external environment. These are the immediate environmental factors that the organization has to interact with on a regular basis. As well as these immediate factors just outside the organization, we also have other external factors which impact the organization, which we need to understand and analyze, but they're not ones which have a constant immediate interaction. And this is what we're going to term as the macro external environment. So these are relevant, important factors, but those which are either occasionally in contact with the organization or interact with the organization from a distance. So we have things like broader society and social trends, economic factors, political influences, and legal and regulatory factors as well. So all of these are important, and they do form the part of the broader external environment, but they're not just outside the organization, they are further away if we're thinking in terms of distance. So organizations have to keep track of social, economic, political and legal trends, as well as factors which may impact particular products or services, as well as other regulatory requirements, but they're not ones which are similar in terms of the microenvironment. We're not talking about customers or suppliers here. We are talking about broader and more general influences. So this forms part of the macro external environment. So if we take these three distinct areas, these three distinct environments, we've got a pretty good understanding of how to categorize different elements of the environment that organizations operate within. The internal environment for everything which is relevant or important to consider but exists within the organization, which the organization is going to have a significant degree of control over. We have the micro external environment, where things which the organization interacts with on a frequent basis, and there's some degree of control over things, again, like suppliers and customers. And then our broader macro external environment, where there is perhaps a degree of control, but it depends on the size and so on of the influence of the company itself. But generally speaking, the macro external environment influences the organization rather than the organization controlling the macro external environment. So we should have a strong understanding of how to distinguish between these different environments. In terms of how that feeds into our analytical tools, so certain tools are suited towards analyzing one environment rather than another. That is quite important for us to understand in order to use these tools appropriately. So we have a very common tool which is used, in a variety of contexts: SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Well, this actually draws in elements from all the three different environments. It's particularly concerned with the internal environment, but it also brings in elements from the macro and micro external environments. As well as SWOT, we have Porter's 5 Forces, another very common, very important tool. And this is exclusively concerned with the micro external environment. So the elements just outside of the organization itself, the relevant marketplace, customers, suppliers, and so on. And our last tool is Pastel, which again you're going to come across several times on your course of study. And this is exclusively concerned with the macro external environment. So Pastel is exclusively concerned with things like political, social, economic, and legal factors, the broader trends of society rather than that of the marketplace.